Hey folks, Real Honesty with Jar Mitlin. I'm Jar Mitlin. This is part 2 of my top 25 favorite tag teams ever. Where, if you guys watched the first part, you know that I talked about some really, really good teams. Some may have been surprised about the placement, but I stand by placing them there because I went over this list probably about 3 times. Repositioned people everywhere and came up with these 25. And of course, there are teams I forgot about. There are teams from the AWA that I forgot about, or didn't include. And a various amount of teams. And a lot of these were ones, whether I've seen some footage or a lot of footage of the ones that impacted me. Just because I don't put a team on here doesn't mean it's a bad tag team. But anyway, starting off with number 19, and the shirt I got, Bad Influence. Kazarian and Christopher Daniels are money. I mean, they still are as the Addiction in Ring of Honor. At least they were the last time I saw that. But Bad Influence, just... They were one of the few good things that came out of the whole Claire Lynch angle, which was absolutely terrifyingly awful. The Claire Lynch angle was shit. I'm amazed that time itself and the planet itself did not collapse in and, just disappear into a black hole because the Claire Lynch angle was that bad. It was really, really, really bad. But Bad Influence came out of it, and Daniels and Kazarian are a money team. I mean, my God, they are just so good in the ring. Great tag team champions. They were great on the mic. They did so much good stuff with how, they trolled AJ and bothered AJ with all that stuff. And kind of sent AJ away where he came back with a darker persona when they were trying to make like the whole Sting thing, which they weren't sure what side he was on. But yeah, it's a shame that they didn't use them better, which I've never understood. I've never understood why they weren't able to use Bad Influence better. I mean, like, the whole thing with contracts, they didn't offer them a better deal. So they left and they ended up going to Ring of Honor, and they tore it up as the Addiction. They've done great. They've done great stuff. Daniels is such a great talker. So is Kazarian. They're great. They're great heels, but they're so likable that you can't help but cheer for them because they're just such tremendous workers. They're so great to watch in the ring. They honestly got to know what they're doing, and they're great tag team wrestlers. They complement each other so well with their great styles. The fact that Daniels can still move as well as he does for being in his mid-40s, and I think Kazarian is 39 or 40. Still, both guys moved just as well as they did a number of years ago when they were in Impact Wrestling. Absolutely tremendous talents. Fantastic. And really can't say enough good stuff about them. That's why they're ranked so high. That's why they're ranked above some of the other teams. Yes, even above the Dudleys. Which, sorry, I stand by what I said. Number 18, the Russians. Nikita Koloff, Crusher Khrushchev, and Barry Darsow. And I'm going to include Ivan Koloff in here, and I know they're a faction. I know I wasn't going to include factions, but I do include another one here in a little bit. But the Russians deserve special mention. Nikita Koloff and Khrushchev, they did really well. And, when Ivan Koloff teamed with Nikita, Koloff really did well in teaching Nikita how to work, how to be a good, effective heel. And that was the one thing. When Nikita did switch to babyface, it worked like gangbusters. It worked absolutely great. He did it in the name of Magnum and won the U.S. title and then challenged Ric Flair for, the World Championship. That didn't exactly work out. But still, Nikita got launched. But yeah, when they were the Russians, they were feuding with the Rock and Roll Express and that great cage match they had where the Rock and Roll Express beat the Russians. And the matches that the Russians had with the Road Warriors, it was just tremendous stuff. Tremendous stuff, and each guy in the group did really, really well. Whether it was usually just a pair of them, but any two of those guys worked really, really well together. Like the Russians, they were great in the NWA. They were great. They were great stuff. Absolutely tremendous. Road Warriors, by the way, make an appearance later in this countdown. You can probably guess where they're going to make it, but anyway. The Fabulous Freebirds are number 17. Okay, the whole thing about Hayes and this kind of stuff and stuff I said about Hayes before, and whether Michael Hayes is a racist or he's not, goes by the wayside. Michael Hayes was a great talker. Buddy Roberts was a tremendous heel, where you could beat up on the guy, but he would find a way to win. Terry Bam Bam Gordy, the powerhouse of the Fabulous Freebirds. And their feud with the Von Erichs is why they're on here. I'm not talking about Michael Hayes and Jimmy Jam Garvin that were the Fabulous Freebirds and Bad Street. You know, the guy in the full bodysuit. I'm not talking about that incarnation. I'm talking about Roberts, Gordy, and Hayes. And Hayes, not a great worker, never was a great worker. In fact, he was a dog shit worker. But God, he was a great heel. He could talk people into the building like very few others. And that's one thing. Michael Hayes, one of the best talkers, one of the most underrated talkers in wrestling. Outside the ring, you can say all you want about him, and I have. But that guy could talk people into the building. And the feud they had with the Von Erichs nearly started riots. In some cases, did start riots. In some cases, I'm surprised the buildings were still standing after that. I've seen some of the matches that they've had with the Von Erichs, and they were vicious. They were vile. But they were great. They were a big box office for WCCW. And what kicked off the whole thing with the Fabulous Freebirds fighting the Von Erichs was December 28th, 1982, Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair in that cage match, where Michael Hayes was a special guest referee. And yes, I will do a 40-year reflection on that show, which is going to be fun to revisit. And that's on the network, so I will be watching it. But the Fabulous Freebirds, I mean, you know, before that, they did well in... They did well, you know, in other companies. Had a very brief stint in WWF or WWF. They did have their stint in World Class Championship Wrestling, and also in the NWA where they faced off against the Road Warriors. But Terry Gordy, to me, was really the star of the group. He was the best wrestler of them, and that's something against Buddy Roberts. Buddy Roberts was a tremendous worker, but he was such a great heel. Gordy. It was amazing watching Terry Gordy in the ring for a guy that size, how he could move so damn well. Like, really, it was tremendous. But the Fabulous Freebirds, you can say whatever you want about Hayes. And, again, I have. The Fabulous Freebirds, I mean, the only reason I rank them this low is because I've seen some of their stuff. I haven't seen a ton, but what I've seen was impressive. But they deserve to be on this list for being pretty much one of the first cool heels. I mean, they were. And they were a tremendous team. Not the incarnation in, you know, early WCW. Because, sorry, Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes were not the Freebirds. They might have been the Freebirds. They were not the Fabulous Freebirds. And the Bad Street USA, Bad Street, Atlanta J, Baddest Street in the whole USA, was actually a pretty damn catchy theme song. So, good stuff there. Now move on to number 16, Terry Bam Bam Gordy making another appearance. And Dr. Death Steve Williams. They were great in Japan. They were great in WCW. Part of one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time. Pay-per-views, period. Not just WCW pay-per-views. Great American Bash 1992. Almost said 82. That would have been wrong. 1992. And they were great. They, you know, spoiler alert, even though I talked about Great American Bash 1992, they did do a... They did have they did win the tag team championships in a, like, you know, a one-night tournament that was, like, you know, tag team heavy. And it had Vader and Sting on there, which was great. That was tremendous stuff, by the way. Terry Orr and Steve Williams, though, were just great. Because, one, they were two powerhouse guys, and they were two legit tough guys. You don't want to mess with either of them. Especially Dr. Death. And I'm not saying Terry's any slouch. Between the two, I would have been more terrified of Dr. Death Steve Williams. But they were great because they just complemented each other so damn well. I mean, their styles, I've seen only a little bit of their stuff in Japan. But it was great. It was great stuff. And Dr. Death was huge in Japan. So was Terry Gordy. Japanese fans really appreciated American wrestlers. They could go out there and go and were legit tough. Like, I mean, Stan Hansen was more over in Japan than he ever was in the States. And that's nothing against, you know, the American fans. The American fans like Stan Hansen. But Stan Hansen found his calling and worked so well in Japan. And Terry Gordy and Steve Williams did well in Japan also. But their time in WCW was also great. It didn't last a ton. But it was really, really good. I mean, they were, man, they were just a really, really tremendous tag team. So that's why they're here at number 16. Number 15, the Fantastics. I mean, their feud with the Midnight Express. Their feuds with other teams, but mainly with the Midnight Express. That's some great tag team wrestling. Fantastic and Midnight Express had some of the best tag team matches you will ever see. Fantastic could bump, do great high flying. Midnight Express could take bumps, you know, off those high flying moves from the Fantastics. Fulton and Rogers, which I know was a rendition of. I know there were a couple renditions of Fantastic, so I just want to make that clear. But the Fantastics, the ones that faced Midnight Express in like 87, 88, 89, tremendous. Just tremendous stuff. Jim Cornette was a great foil for the Fantastics, even though they could get their hands on him here and there, but he would always somehow get away. And just any match they had, the Fantastics didn't always need to win. They would always come close to winning, and then, it would just get taken away from them. But as great as a team as they were, and they were a great team, they were like second to Rock and Roll Express as far as like that babyface, high-flying, great, double team maneuver, long hair, the type that the women just crave, because, women went crazy for the Fantastics and Rock and Roll Express. But the Fantastics were great, were just a great, great team. They were just a tremendous, they were tremendous workers. And really, their matches, if you can seek out their matches on WWE Network in particular, if you don't have any other collections of them, seek out their matches. Seek out their matches. They are really, really good. Fantastics are a wonder. They live up to their name. They are fantastic. Now, number 14, Triple X, Christopher Daniels, Elix Skipper, and Low Ki. I'm kind of cheating a little bit by including factions, but a lot of times it would just be two members of the team. So you would have Low Ki and Skipper, Low Ki and Daniels, or Daniels and Skipper. And Daniels and Skipper were the best rendition of it. Like, nothing against Low Ki, who's tremendous. They certainly were a great, great trio. But Low Ki wasn't in the group a ton of times like before. He ended up leaving the company. Shock of shocks. But Daniels and Skipper, their feud with America's Most Wanted, which is another team that will make an appearance later in this countdown. And I have my reasons for why I placed them where I did. But not yet. Not on this show. But Triple X, their feud in particular, the the Turning Point 2004 cage match where Skipper walked the cage. Defining moment. It was the last match where Triple X teamed up for almost 3 years until they reformed in one of the few times that Low Ki was back in the company. And it was Christopher Daniels, Elix Skipper, and Low Ki. When Skipper actually returned to the company, I think Skipper had been gone for about a year. They were just really, really great. A really, really great trio. Great tag team wrestling. They knew what to do. They knew their way around that ring. They were great, great heels. Daniels and Skipper in particular, the feud that they had with America's Most Wanted, as I mentioned, they were just such great heels. And even though America's Most Wanted ended up turning heel later 05, which really worked for them, Triple X were just great foils for them. Just great. The New Church isn't on here, by the way, even though New Church and America's Most Wanted had a great feud with them. But yeah, like Triple X and America's Most Wanted are often too forgotten about tag teams. They're too often forgotten about tag teams, at least. They did a lot for TNA Impact Wrestling. And, I know it's gone through a bunch of name changes since, but it was TNA back then. They did so well and and gave of their bodies and their souls. They still do. James Storm is still wrestling. I don't know if Skipper is. I know Low Ki is. Daniels is in Ring of Honor. I don't think Chris Harris is wrestling anymore. If he is, I don't know where he's wrestling. But for the time that they wrestled each other, God, they were a great team. They were just great teams. Great teams, great rivalry, great blood feud. It's absolutely wonderful. So that's where I'm going to leave that off. So I got 13 more teams to cover. This could take another 2 shows. It could take another 3 shows if I start getting, a bit descriptive. Anyway, that's what I got to say so far. Do you agree? Do you disagree with what I've said? Like, share, comment, subscribe. Twitter link is, of course, in the description. It's been Real Honesty with Jarmuth Lynn. I'm Jarmuth Lynn, and I will see you soon.